we're wrapping up Guess the Guy finally and talking about some more risers in the early season of college football. All that and more when we return.
Welcome to the Devy Devotional Podcast, a show devoted to college prospect evaluation with a fantasy football focus. With your hosts, John Arrington, Aaron Wilcox, and Andy Starr. This podcast brings you actionable strategies and player-driven analysis for your Devy, C2C, and Dynasty leagues. Let's dive in.
Let's dive into some more college risers. Welcome into the Devy Devotional, where we stay devoted to Devy. I'm your host, John Arrington, joined as always by Andy Starr and Aaron Wilcox. And tonight, like I said, there was too many players last time, so we're going to continue talking. We're still rising up here on the Devy Devotional. We're still going to talk about some more Devy risers. And I guess maybe that was to be expected going into the season. There was a lot of ambiguity. There was a lot of unknown factors and unknown players and all that. So we have a large list of players who are jumping up into our ranks, jumping up into our known players now and things of that nature. So all that. And then Aaron surprised me right before we jumped on and said, "Hey, buddy, guess what? I have a Guess the Guy for you. You don't get to hold off anymore. You don't get to duck me anymore. We're going to wrap up this game. I believe Andy or Aaron is up by 2 points on me right now. So I have to at least get 2 points to tie him. And obviously 3 points to win Guess the Guy. So we'll see if that happens or not. But first, before we get into Guess the Guy, let's check in with the boys. Aaron, you bringing the heat tonight?
Yeah, good to wrap this up. For anybody who had not been tuning in, we are doing just a fun little segment at the beginning of our podcast throughout the summer and just trying to come up with some different categories for our co-hosts to guess and a little scoring system to it. So, I mean, if you were able to guess the guy right away with the limited hints given, obviously you get more points, less points if you aren't able to get the guy or if you can't get them at all, I guess you get 0 points, but we make it very easy at the very end. So yeah, excited to see how John does.
Andy, you have the night off from Guess the Guy, so I guess you're feeling pretty good.
Well, in a way I am, but I'm also feeling pretty bad because pretty much whatever happens, I will be the loser of Guess the Guy. So you know, it had to be somebody. I'm a little upset at one of the guys I missed earlier on. I can't even remember which one it was, but you know, like I said, somebody's got to be the loser. I'm hoping Aaron tries to stump you on this one because we can't have you win. Let's just be real here.
Oh man, well I guess I think we'll have a lot to talk about tonight, so we should probably not prolong this any longer and let's guess the guy. Let's guess the guy. Honestly, it's been so long, I almost forget how to play, but we'll see how this works. If my brain is working, I was just going through my top 75 ranks for DLF, so maybe that will have helped me. I was not necessarily doing that intentionally for Guess the Guy. I didn't know that there was going to be a Guess the Guy, but I got some player names fresh in my mind, so we will see. And I don't want any of this. This was a top 75, or this was a top 75 player like 5 months ago or something. No. Top 75 player today, Aaron.
Sounds good, John. I will play fair.
All right, let's go.
All right. You want the first hint here, or are you just going to guess anybody?
Oh, that's right. Yes, yeah, I told you. I completely forgot. Eric McAllister.
Ooh, that would be topical. That would be amazing, but that is not him. This is a running back. Plays the running back position.
Okay. Running back position. I mean, we talked about some running backs last week. I don't think you would do that, but maybe you would to try and throw me off. I think you're gonna go a little more out there. I'm going to say, oh man, Caden Durham.
Oh, I like the guess. Kadam Durham, fun player from LSU, but he is not it. Kadam Durham is also having kind of a down season, unfortunately. But
Yeah, and unfortunately, he might actually be falling out of the top 75 ranks here pretty soon if he doesn't start doing something.
yeah, hopefully not. He's too talented for that. I think some of it is out of his control a little bit. But anyways, next hint up there, market share for this running back. So that's a rush yards share is 34% for the 2024 season. So last season.
Okay, 24%. Oh, 34%.
34.
34%. Okay. For last year, see, this is why it sucks because now I have all the New Year's data in my head. But all right, so last year, so he's not a freshman. Obviously, we weren't doing that. He's not an unknown player or someone who didn't do anything last year. Man, I'm going to go with 34%. Man. I'm going to go with Mark Fletcher.
Solid guess. That is not the player. Mark Fletcher is breaking out this year, though, so that's kind of fun to see. Let's see.
He is.
Year
I
in
also think
college.
I've guessed Mark Fletcher like 3 times and guessed the guy. Like I feel like I've guessed him like almost every time.
Right. We just keep feeding you running backs for guess the guy. Why do we do that, Andy? I don't know.
I got kind of sad when you said it was another running back. I was like, ah, John's going to get it.
Who knows? I mean, so far it's been tricky enough. So we will
does.
go to year in college. He's a 4th year. So this year, I guess this current year right now, he's a 4th year back.
4th year back. Jadarian Price.
Love that. If it's not it.
Oh my God! I thought I had it.
Yeah, and Jadarian Price being a beast this year. Good guess. No, we'll narrow it down a little bit more. Conference is the Big Ten.
Ooh, okay. Man, I really, your face, you got me with that one. I really thought it was Jadarian Price. Big Ten, 34%, 4th year player. Oh man. I'm going to go with. Oh man, why am I blanking on Darius Taylor?
Ooh, not the Homer. Not the Homer pick. Nope.
I think I got it. I think I know who it is.
So no, not Darius Taylor. Unfortunately, Darius Taylor this year, he's always like a workhorse type of guy unless he's injured, right? And he's kind of injured right now.
Well, that's what I mean. Honestly, I don't even know if that was probably not a great guess, but I was just thinking he always misses time and stuff, and so maybe he would have been at like 34%. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see here. So we already introduced those other clues. Now we get a little bit easier here. But this
Can I
is a
guess- can I
Penn
guess the
State.
team? Oh, Penn State. Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Okay.
I thought it was going to be Emmett Johnson.
Oh, that would have been fun. This is a Penn State running back.
Okay, Penn State running back. Ooh, man, I don't even know if that truly helps because I mean they're really, I mean it obviously does help, but I mean there's 2, and I mean honestly, well no, I guess there's only 1 senior, right? I believe so. All right, I'm going Katron Allen.
Well, both Katron Allen and Nick Singleton are in the same class. So they're both
Are they really?
4th year guys. Yep.
Darn.
And
okay.
I could have been really mean, and because they were only 1% apart for market
That's what I'm
share,
saying. I
rush
don't know if
yards.
the percentage made a difference.
And it was
I don't know
so
why in my
close.
head I have Nicholas Singleton as a junior,
and
but
you
I guess I was
and you
wrong.
got Katron Allen. You guessed it right. Yes.
Yeah. Let's go,
So it's a
baby.
tie
We're
though,
tied.
It's a
All right.
tie. Yeah, John and I are tied. We tied this year for guess the guy. I'll take it. I was hoping that was a tricky one, right? It was 50-50,
That
right?
was a good one. Yeah.
It
Like
was
that
that, yeah,
almost
because I mean, even
guaranteed.
even with the school, yeah, there that was very tricky. Like you said, what a percentage away. Um, Man, I honestly think I would have gone Singleton had I actually remembered that he was a senior. So I guess I kind of lucked myself in, or like I kind of helped myself out by being wrong.
No, no, hey, it worked out. But no, good guess there, and good way to wrap up that from this off season.
I just went in. Thank you. Yeah, that was fun. I'm glad we did that. We ended up with a two-way tie. Andy 1 point behind, so not too far off. But I just went and looked at Debbie Beth, and yeah, Nicholas Singleton is a senior, believe it or not. So who would have known? All right, that was fun, but I think we have some players that we need to talk about, some risers that we need to talk about. So why don't we dive into Debbie? Alrighty, so last week we talked about Jeremiah Smith, Mario Craver, Jonah Coleman, Justice Haynes, Hollywood Smothers, Ahmad Hardy, JKS, Deuce Robinson, CJ Bailey, Amar Cooper, Dante Moore, and Bo Pribula. We will not be talking about those players today unless we're just referencing them for whatever reason. But we just figured, especially after another week of football, we didn't get to everyone we could have possibly talked about last week. And so, let's go ahead and mention some more players. I know, maybe just because we already mentioned his name, should we start off with Mark Fletcher? I think he has to be a riser, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It just depends what category we want to put him into. Last week we did some like obvious stud stars, high end college prospects is like that tier down. Literally a tier down from the high end, that is the next bucket, and then kind of the flashing but fool's gold. So that's the like uncertain if this guy's really legit, but he has a breakout so far into the season. So those are the four different categories we came up with. And last week we kind of debated some of these guys. So I think that Mark Fletcher is a good call out here. I still think he's kind of a tier down from the high end. I think for me still, he's borderline though. Like he could end up being a pretty high end college prospect. Just keeping in mind, like last week though, we said like Justice Haynes is a high end college prospect. We said Ahmad Hardy, Hollywood Smothers. I have those guys just ahead of Mark Fletcher. So that's kind of where I come in at with him. But I mean, Fletcher's having a great season at Miami, no doubt. But he's also benefiting from like Jordan Lyle's been out basically the entire season with injury so far. But yeah, Mark Fletcher is still looking good.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And it's not anything against Mark Fletcher because I think the reason that I hesitate to put any of these running backs into like that top like smash prospect category is because a lot of the ones at the top right now haven't really done it consistently over the span of their career at like top level competition in the case of Ahmad Hardy. But like Hollywood Smothers, this is really his first year getting like the lion's share of the carries, and Justice Haynes, same thing, never really took hold of the backfield while at Alabama, so that's why I kind of hesitated to put anybody at the top. So I feel like there should be a category between 2 and 3, or maybe between 1 and 2 or something, where we could have put those guys, because I really think Mark Fletcher should be higher than like considering a tier below, because he is having a really good season and he's done it for 2 years as well. Like he had a good freshman year and a good sophomore year as well, albeit in somewhat of a timeshare. It seems like he's garnering more of the market share, getting the higher backfield dominator this year. But I just think that overall he hasn't shown to be on that same level as like guys like Ahmad Hardy and Justice Haynes and Hollywood Smothers and a few other guys, to where I would put him up there with them just yet. But he's certainly on the way. But I would really like a category in between those guys where I could put a guy like Mark Fletcher.
I get you. I guess I don't know. I was the one that said, "Hey, why don't we try and make it as simple as possible and turn it into 4 tiers instead of five?" And maybe we needed that fifth tier after all. Who knows? But I tend to agree with everything you guys are saying, and especially when you're looking at like where we put Hollywood Smothers, where we put Ahmad Hardy. Although maybe we can talk about Ahmad Hardy again because I know Aaron had some doubts and maybe he's changed his mind a little bit. But I think with Mark Fletcher, I agree. He is tier three, a tier down from the high end. I kind of like that mix there with, with some of those players that we already put in there. But I will say one thing is, he's always been kind of regarded as just a grinder, plotter kind of deal or whatever. And I don't know if there's a difference if he's lost a little bit of weight or if he's hit the gym a little harder this year or whatever. But we're seeing that big time run rate creep up. It's also, a smallish sample with only 4 games. So, we can't say 100% that, it's going to stay. But right now he's sitting at that 8.9% big time run rate over the last 2 years. And I mean, I'm assuming a lot of that's coming from this year because I don't think he necessarily had too much of the big time run rate or as much going into the season. So definitely seems like he has a little more burst, a little more big playability this year. And so if that continues, maybe he will jump into that tier two, by the end of the season. But I think for now, we'll put him here in tier three. I just figured we already talked about him at the start of the show. We might as well start off with them.
And just to clarify, Fletcher's actually been pretty good as far as like big time run rate throughout his career. He's around 9% as a freshman, and just under or just over 7.5% as a sophomore. So pretty good. He's been pretty consistent throughout his career. But this year, sitting over 10% for the first time. So if he can keep that up, we'll be happy, obviously. And he's been, he's not logging a lot of receptions, but he's been efficient when he is, running those passing routes. He was over 1 yard per route run last week. It dropped a little bit after the last game, but he's still sitting at 0.75. So he can catch the ball. He's just not seeing a lot of volume.
Yeah. And do you guys consider when these guys are showing out, let's say in the old Pac-12, or nowadays it's probably just more the, obviously the G5 level, but the ACC, do you give them a slight knock, that kind of thing? Because they're going against a little bit easier defenses. I guess you could say Big 12 even too, compared to, I think, John, you've said before, running back production in the model is weighed a little bit SEC, Big 10. I can't remember if that's still a thing and if that's kind of factored in. I think I take that into consideration a little bit with some of these big time rates. It's like, is it because Fletcher is like a special athlete? I'm not so sure, but he is physical. He's a solid runner, and he's going up against defenses that he can probably shred a little bit more easily than if he was playing in the SEC, for example.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, no. Running backs do not get a knock for being in the ACC or anything like that. Honestly, even everything that Beth and Debbie Beth were built on were the Power Five, conferences and the G5, and so obviously there's a lot up in the air right now with colleges and conferences and everything. So that's probably going to be a work in progress as far as making any changes. I don't want to be too slow, but I also don't want to be too crazy and say, oh, well, just because they added a couple teams, like all of a sudden I'm going to change everything that I've been doing for the last, decade or whatever. So what I noticed personally was obviously when you're in the past, at the very least, is obviously if you're dealing with a very small school or maybe even just a small school, it doesn't have to be very small. If you're dealing with a small school like Tulane or something like that, yes, I'm going to give you a knock because there's probably a pretty good chance that you're, running up against some players that who, will never even sniff the NFL, like, things like that. But even in the when the Pac-12 was like still around or at least more prevalent than they are now, the Big 12, all that kind of stuff, I always gave the wide receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks a knock for playing in the Pac-12. But I never really found that the running backs needed a knock from that, just because you're still earning, at least in my opinion, or what I've researched over the years, you're still earning those big runs. You're still doing that. Like, you're still, whether your offensive line is great or not, things, so many other factors play into it, but I feel like you're still kind of earning that as a player. And if you can run 70 yards and get a touchdown, like I'm not going to really knock that, against you. So especially, the ACC gets kind of like crapped on now just because I feel like, now compared to the Big Ten and the SEC, obviously they're not the same. But at the same time, I don't know that I truly believe that Mark Fletcher's running against like accountants and stuff like that either. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just echo that sentiment to some extent as well. I found that big time run rate is somewhat translatable at all levels, like even FCS. That's how I'm identifying guys like Jamari Taylor and Malachi Hosley. They're having big time run rates around that 8 to 10% or more at FCS, and I'm like, okay, these guys could be good at the next level, and a lot of times those are the ones that do end up hitting.
I like it. That's why I ask you guys the hard questions there, because you guys know the answers.
The nerdy questions, if you will. One of the original metrics that I had in Beth, and I ended up taking it out because I found out it wasn't as sticky as I thought it was going to be, was yards. What was it? Scrimmage yards above teammate. And so essentially, it was looking at like it was comparing you to your own teammates on the same team and saying like how much better are you or how much worse are you than your teammates and things like that. It was cool, and it actually did. It worked out in some ways. Like if you think of like a Bijan Robinson versus a Roshan Johnson, obviously it's going to show you that Bijan Robinson's a hell of a lot better than Roshan Johnson. But unfortunately, there's other times where it was actually hurting some players because maybe another guy was just really good as well, and so it made it seem like, oh, he's only a half a yard better per touch or whatever it might be. And it's like, well, yeah, but they're both good. Like if you think back to I don't even know if there's an example, but like just think of when there was 2 3 good running backs on a team. Look at like Penn State right now and things like that. So it I ended up taking it out, but I think that's a good one for like G5 and stuff like that. And you can look at some of these smaller programs and say, okay, well, this guy is doubling or tripling all these other players on the same team, and that's where we go, okay, maybe it actually could be sticky for that one. All right, but we're not here to talk about all the fun and nerdy metrics that that go into Beth and all that kind of stuff. We're here to talk about risers. Andy, you got one for us?
Yeah, well, I think this name just needs to be mentioned here at this point, just because I see it on like every mock draft that's come out in the last week, and his name's been popping up in the last 2 or 3 weeks as like maybe the QB1 in this class, and then what we saw Indiana do to Illinois last week, dismantling a top 15 team. Does Fernando Mendoza start to register as one of the top QBs in this class for you guys?
I can say that I don't have him there yet, but I will say that he's definitely doing better this year than I expected. And like you said, I mean, he's definitely on people's radars. He's definitely on people's minds. The only thing is the big time throw rate is just not there, man. And I think that's what's always held me back about Mendoza. I drafted him for $1 in a Devy auction that I was in over the off season, and so I mean that's great because it's $1. Who cares? But it's $1 out of $1,000 budget. So I barely paid for him, which is great, and he's definitely rising. But still sitting at 2.8% big time throw rate, and the intended air yards are a little lower than I'd like to see over the last couple of years. So if he continues on and starts picking up that big time throw rate, then he could take a jump into that next year. That being said, I did just move him into my top 75 ranks. He was outside my top 75 before this week, so he has to be a riser. But I don't know that I'm ready to crown him as anything more than just a solid college QB at this point either.
Yeah, Fernando Mendoza is most certainly a riser. I'm not ready to go crazy and say like he's the QB1 or anything like that, but do have to appreciate what he's done thus far through 4 games. I mean, 14 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, accurate with the ball, taking advantage of his playmakers. But even his like average yards per completion is not as high as I would think, and that's probably reflected in some of the metrics that John referenced there. And then you look at the competition level; it's like they're just thrashing Old Dominion, Kennesaw State. It was Indiana State was another one. I know they just beat Illinois, which was a big win. They just dismantled them. It was very impressive. But we have to look back at what Indiana does, and I mean they just put out quarterback production like last year. Their quarterback play, you would have thought that guy would also be like a top five, like Heisman type of contender or something like that, almost with the production there. It was just very high end, or maybe at the top five is too lofty, but you just think that guy would have been a stud, but no, it's Rourke. He was not special, and I think that Mendoza's better than him. Sure, he's got that NFL height, and he's building out the frame, which was a concern for me when he was at Cal. I just didn't really believe in Mendoza, but it was partially that, and also just the difficulty of throws that he was pulling off. Like John is saying, like the big time throw rate. I don't know if it's there. I don't know. I just am not completely sold on Fernando Mendoza. So I'm having a hard time ranking him here because I do think he's moving into that high end college prospect territory. But I mean, is he in that top end yet? No, I don't have him quite ranked there yet. So I'll say a tier under the top end with a lot of potential to rise, though.
And actually, I didn't give my tier, but I'm sticking with flashing, but maybe fool's gold tier 4. I just think I'm looking at the big time throw rate from last year, 2.7%. I'm looking at the big time throw rate from this year, 2.8%. Nothing's changed. I think we're seeing a little bit of the early crappy team sample size, and like the further along we get into Big Ten and all that kind of stuff, that part of the schedule, I think we're going to see those numbers come back down. And there's a reason why Beth wasn't really that high on him in the first place, and I haven't seen enough to really change my mind. And I mean, obviously it's still early-ish and everything, nothing's set in stone, but he is directly behind Bo Pribula in Devy Beth right now, and we already put Pribula in that tier 4. So I'm I'm sticking to my guns, sticking to Beth's guns, and saying tier 4, flashing, but maybe fool's gold.
I think I'm going to lean more towards what Aaron was saying. Um, I do think it's impressive what Indiana did to Illinois last week. Um, but, and the big time throw rate's tough for me. I do put not a lot of, but I do put some weight into it. But I can also understand that it's a subjective stat. And I try not to put too much emphasis on things that are subjective. Like we're just relying on PFF Sky to say like, oh, that was a tight window. Oh, that was a deep ball that was on a dot, um, which maybe it was, but it is subjective at the end of the day. So I try not to put too much into it. I'm more focused on QBR and yards per attempt and A dot, that sort of stuff. But it's kind of like the stats are weird. Like his last 2 games against Indiana State, 95% completion percentage. Last week against Illinois, 91% completion percentage. Like you're not going to do that for an entire season. So I don't want to say that it's not real because at the same time it's been a really hot start, and I think he's probably going to continue just because. And that's the other thing you have to weigh is like this is a Kurt Signetti offense, which Aaron was talking about. Curtis Rourke played really well in last year and got himself drafted because of it. So if Rourke gets drafted and we think Mendoza's better than Rourke, which I think all of us probably do, then worst case scenario, he's like a early day 3 draft pick at some point in time. So that's why I kind of feel like obligated to put him in a tier 3 at this point. Let's not just call him like a flash in the pan. I do think he's going to amount to something. He will be an NFL quarterback. And right now, like I said, people are saying he's a first round quarterback. I'm not there yet, but if he starts going through a Big Ten schedule and starts picking up a lot of big wins, and I don't think he's going to complete 90% of his passes the rest of the way, but if he keeps being efficient, then yeah, I think that this is a guy that you could certainly be talking about as a potential first round guy in a few months.
Yeah, and you look at the surrounding landscape. That's part of the reason why I say at least he's got to be in that at least tier down from the high end. Because I mean, who are these high end guys that we're talking about in a quote unquote high end category? I mean, Kate Klubnik, DJ Legway, like all those guys are dropping. We got to start moving a guy who's just absolutely phenomenal. I know it's a smaller sample size of 4 games, but and I shouldn't say maybe phenomenal. Like you've pointed out some metrics that do in fact matter, but at the same time, he's been looking really, really good. Even if he comes down a little bit, he'll still be continuing to rise week after week after week. So yeah, Mendoza moving up. It sounds like he got into that category a tier down from the high end, so tier 3. Is it my turn to nominate a guy or okay? It is. Well, there's a bunch of different directions that I could go here. I'm going to go with a layup one. We don't really need to talk much about it because we all love this guy, but I don't believe we mentioned him or at least listed him on our list last week. Bryant Wesco, Clemson wide receiver, balling out, showing that he's the number one at Clemson this season. Not that it was necessarily something that we doubted, but just as a consensus thing. I mean, like he was so closely ranked to TJ Moore, who did have a good bounce back week this last week for sure. Ton of targets. He had what TJ Moore had like 15, 17, something like that targets. It was crazy. But I mean, Bryant Wesco's been the clearly dominant number one there all season long for Clemson in a team that's just fallen apart. It's like not playing well. Antonio Williams has been banged up. Clemson, you're seeing that Wesco breakout dominance this season as a riser. So maybe he's not the biggest riser for us, but just in general, he has to be talked about. And I think that he's becoming an obvious stud in that top tier.
I don't think we need to go too far or into this one or talk too much about it. And not to say that like anything against the player, because I love Bryant Wesco, but I think we've already talked about him a good amount, and he is definitely a riser. Because even he's risen above what I expected, going into the year and things like that. I think that he went from wow he's really good to okay he's an obvious stud and star at tier 1. So I think that we can say even though we always liked him, I think he has solidified himself into that tier 1 now.
Yeah, last week I said Mario Craver, and it was kind of a hot take, was in the tier 1. And I said because he's going to be top 5 in the 2027 class. Well, Wesco was already in that top 5, and he's still ahead of Craver. So he's definitely tier 1 for me as well. And you just look at what he's done so far this year. Like last week against Syracuse, he had 6 catches for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that was like a bad game for him this year, honestly. So considering what he did against like Troy and Georgia Tech. But yeah, I mean, he's been good all throughout his freshman year. Obviously, we were very high on him coming in, but then just continuing it and really setting himself apart from TJ Moore. And I know Antonio Williams has been hurt, but he's been the clear cut guy there and separated himself from everyone else in the team. So easily tier 1. No need to really debate it.
No, I tend to agree, and that brings us back to me, I believe. And I had a player that I wanted to talk about, and then Andy got me all riled up by saying he doesn't care about big time throw rate, and I actually went back to 2023 and found my old article.
That's not what I said.
I went back and found my old article that I wrote when I first started like really caring and realizing how important big time throw rate and intended air yards were. Like I know that you guys probably get sick of me talking about those two things, but there's a reason why I talk about them because it's so important. And it's basically like if you can't hit this threshold, we can almost just write you off. Almost. Obviously, there's always outliers and stuff like that, but it really is like, man, it's the beginning of. Obviously, you still have to hit other criteria and stuff like that, but I mean, it's kind of wild. But I was trying to see if there was I mean, obviously, I'm looking for 5% big time throw rate and at least 9 intended air yards. Or I'm sorry, 9.5 intended air yards. That's my minimum threshold that I'm looking for, and that's what I was looking at in the article. But I was trying to see if there was like a percentage or anything like that, and unfortunately, I don't necessarily have that. I just have a list of a bunch of quarterbacks, and that'll probably get boring. So I'm not going to talk about that. But I went off on that tangent. I was reading while you guys were talking, and then I kind of forgot who I was going to talk about. But actually, I just remembered. So we're good to go. It is a QB, and one who was on radars, but I don't know how much he was on radars, especially if we start talking about like tier one, tier two, that kind of thing. But Darian Mensah out of Duke. I think that we do need to talk about him, and he is hitting those big time throw rate and intended air yard thresholds. Unlike Fernando Mendoza, I know, Andy doesn't care about big time throw rate, but here we are. Darian Mensah, you want to talk about completion rate? You want to talk about being safe with the ball, adjusted yards per attempt, the QBR is there. I mean, honestly, like he's hitting every threshold right now, albeit early on, but he's definitely doing the right things at Duke. So what do we think?
Yeah, I mean, I was on the Mensa hype train before the season started, just based on what we saw out of him last season when he was playing for Tulane, right?
Yep,
So,
Tulane.
um, yeah, and I guess I wasn't expecting him to continue that dominance, right off the bat at Duke. I know he had a kind of a layup matchup against Elon in week one, and he did everything you'd ask from there. Um, I would say kind of struggled a little bit against Illinois, um, which Fernando Mendoza did not do, I would add. And just to get back, I don't. I just want to defend myself on the big time throw rate real quick, because I didn't say I didn't think it was important. I just said that it's a stat that could be contaminated because it is subjective. Like, what if the
Sure.
guy who's doing Fernando Mendoza's big time run rate one week is somebody different the next week? It could change week to week just based on who's reviewing it. So I didn't say I don't care about it, but it's a stat that could be contaminated at times.
They must really hate Mendoza then, because he had a 2.7% last year,
No,
2.8% this year.
and I understand that, and that's why I haven't. If he was at 5.5%, he would have been in tier two, maybe even tier one.
Oh yeah,
But
for sure.
that does give you pause, obviously. But with Mensa, who we're talking about here, he does have the big time throw rate. He does have the A dot. He's had it both seasons that he's played. He does have the yards per attempt around 9. Touchdown interception ratio looks good. Rushing upside is there. I know he's taking a little bit more sacks here at Duke, and that affects like the rushing total. But overall, I think he does offer that. So, yeah, I think right now I'd probably put him at the very low end of that tier two. So I'm gonna drop him in right there as it stands right now.
Where did you have him, John?
I didn't actually give mine, but I think I agree with Andy there. I think I'm moving him into that tier two now.
Ooh, I kind of like that. So I'm a little bit hesitant to actually go that far with him, which is funny because I remember on our hot take podcast, that was one of my hot takes for the season was Fernando, or sorry, not Fernando, that Darian Mensah would work his way into the top five Devy QB status by the end of the season. And so I was mocked and ridiculed, as Felix Sharp would say, by my co-hosts and called a hot and fire take, um, analyst there. So no, I'm just kidding. But that was one of my hot takes, and I guess I
Forgot
was
about
just
that one.
expecting a solid season, despite the fact that I still don't think Duke is good, right? Like as a team, like it's everything he's doing or putting up production wise is because he's doing a great job. If it's not buoyed by like this amazing system or anything like that, so
Right.
I have to give him a
They
lot of credit.
lost two of the games that he did fairly well in, right? Like so, like you said,
Yeah.
this is not just system or whatever. Like I feel like he's earning it, which is why I'm willing to move him up into that tier two because I think he's actually doing it, and it's not like Cade Klubnik last year where you just have such a supporting cast that like anyone could do that, unless you're Cade Klubnik from 2025. But yeah, I really do like Mensa. I mean, he is sitting very high in Debbie Beth right now. I mean, maybe. Hey, I actually kind of forgot that you said the whole top five thing. I will absolutely apologize if we go a few more weeks and he's still up here, because he is definitely doing something right. Like Andy said, they've really only played like the one true game against Illinois, and his numbers did come down, but they weren't terrible or anything like that either. So we'll see what happens when he gets into more of a strict schedule and things like that. But I do like what he's doing right now.
Very good. I'll roll with the squad. I didn't necessarily give an official rating. I'm a little bit skeptical if he's like truly that high end, right? He's kind of in that in between that Andy mentioned. There's kind of a bucket where these guys could not be quite at the high end yet, but they're just about there. And Mensah is just about there. Like you said, he needs to be challenged a little bit more competition wise, but they've had some fairly strong competition thus far outside of Elon. So yes, we like what we've seen out of the Duke quarterback.
Absolutely. All right, Andy, I think you are up.
Oh man, I was. All right, I'll do another quarterback just because I want to start. Earlier this week, for whatever reason, we got on the topic of the 2027 class and how the QBs weren't necessarily looking that great. Obviously, DJ Lagway's fallen off the face of the earth. And I had mentioned CJ Carr as a guy that had caught my attention just with the past few weeks here. So I wanted to get your guys' idea on like one, the 2027 class in general, assuming obviously some of these guys are going to come back that were 2026 eligible, but in specific, just like the true sophomores of this class and where you're at with those guys. But obviously CJ Carr in specific here.
I will start by saying that Carr was actually pretty high in Fresh Beth last year. And so, like I never truly believed that he was going to be some stud or anything because it seemed like no one was on him. No one really cared about him. He really didn't get drafted all that often, or if he did, it was pretty late in supplementals and everything. But I will say, then it kind of looked weird with how, like him not winning the job right away and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh well, maybe this is not a good thing. Maybe I was wrong and or Fresh Beth was wrong. Thinking about that kind of thing. But he's getting really close to hitting those thresholds that I look for. He does need to take care of the ball a little bit more, but being a true sophomore, not the end of the world. 2.6% interception rate is not what I love to see, but he's only started 4 games, so I mean we can kind of take it with a grain of salt. Like you said, the 2027 class is pretty terrible. So if we just throw him in there, I think he's already kind of got a leg up on just about everybody else. I'm actually trying to see where he is versus the other 2027 QBs. I have
And
one.
Andy,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was just curious, Andy, where did you say you had him amongst those, 4 tiers that we've set up?
So I did mention that I want to see more because last week against Purdue, it looked good, but he only threw 12 passes and his yards per attempt were like almost 20. So obviously we don't expect that to continue. I don't think he's a flash in the pan because he has shown growth each week, I would say. I know the Texas A&M game, he had some, sloppy throws, but I would say he looked better than he did against Miami. And I think the schedule softens up for Notre Dame for a little bit here, which will benefit him, obviously. So I don't think he's flash in the pan, but I think he's like near the like upper half of like the tier 3, I would say, where you need to see more, just because, and as in relation to the 2027 guys, I think he's right there with. I guess you'd have to put Julian Sayin in that same area as him right now, where you just kind of have to see a little bit more. But what we've seen so far isn't enough to like tell just throw them away, throw them in the trash right now. Like there's something there. We just need to see more of it. So I'm at tier 3 right now, just below that, that level that we're feeling comfortable as like a pro prospect.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. The more I'm looking at it, like he doesn't seem to run at all. So we obviously don't love that. He has .7 yards per carry, so definitely not, really too flashy with the ball and all that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna leave him with the interception rate, the small sample and everything. The intended air yards a little lower than I'd like to see it. I'm gonna say he's maybe fool's gold at this point. I'm gonna put him in tier 4. I don't hate him, and he definitely. I mean, I love the fact that he's already hitting that big time throw rate, but I need to see more, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Andy highlighted well that their schedule should ease up a little bit. It was a tough one to start for sure. That's why we're seeing Jeremiah Love,
It's true.
a little bit lackluster production, at least in the rushing departments thus far this season, but still a talented guy. CJ Carr, probably same thing, like first time or first year starter, trying to get some rapport with new wide receivers and new weapons and get that offense up and running. But I have not seen enough yet. I think there is just, not quite a big enough sample size for me to really buy in, and he hasn't looked amazing in my opinion. So I think he's a little bit of fool's gold, uncertain, unproven to this point. So I think more in that tier 4, but he's certainly got the upside to rise up, right? I definitely rostered him or drafted him as a true freshman, so I had some hope that he would become a starter. But the fact that he barely even won that starting job, you could say oh, he had it all along. From the sounds of it, that's not the case at Notre Dame. I'm glad he won it. He's been solid thus far, but it sounds like he's settling in on our tier 4. I do have to say from last week, probably got to bump up Dante Moore just a little bit, but that's a cake schedule thus far. I'm really interested to see how that ultimately plays out as the season goes along, because Oregon's they've thrashed everybody thus far. So have we actually got to see him play, worthy opponent and that kind of thing? No. But I mean, Dante Moore at this point, he's showing more than just fool's gold, in my opinion. He's starting to show why he was that very nuanced, very advanced passer coming out of high school who, got into a pretty bad situation there at UCLA.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I guess once I see someone fail that much, it's hard to get that out of your head. But we get one or two more good games. I think we'll have to agree that Dante Moore jumps up into that tier 3 at that point. And yeah, and the same thing could be said for CJ Carr as well. And like Andy was saying, maybe I'm not giving it enough credit. Like I don't go game by game as far as strength of schedule and things like that. So maybe it'll clear up a little bit, and CJ Carr will actually truly flash in the next few weeks, and then he'll easily jump into that tier 3 at that point as well. I have a wide receiver for us, and it's a player that Andy was all about in the offseason. He definitely got into my good graces as well, but I think he's starting to turn a lot of heads, and that is Ian Strong out of Rutgers. I mean, the dude just went up against Iowa. I mean, I don't know if maybe this is a down year for Iowa or not, but generally speaking, Iowa has one of the best defenses in the nation. And he just went up against Iowa and had 8 receptions for 151 yards at 18.9 yards per reception. I mean, I got really excited about him. Andy mentioned him, and for whatever reason, he wasn't I didn't have the year in college right on Ian Strong, and I said, "Oh, he's an old guy, right?" He said, "No, he's not." And once I changed that, I started looking to his numbers and everything. Holy crap! Like this guy could be electric. And guess what? It's I think the name screws it up. Ian Strong. It just, I mean, the last name's great, but I think Ian, it's just, you don't get overly excited about that. And I really think that's why people are like, it's Rutgers and it's Ian. Who cares? But I think this guy's got to start moving up into people's radars and moving up people's ranks as well. In fact, I just moved him up quite a bit in my DLF ranks.
Yeah,
I like it, and he's having quite a strong season, huh? So Ian Strong, I mean, just dominating within that offense for the most part. I mean, I guess KJ Duff's been doing a lot of good things for them too, which I don't know who that is, but I'm looking here. I'm like, he's been impressive. And Sheffield, we kind of know what Sheffield is. He's not a great player, but solid contributor. But hey, nonetheless, we've seen some awesome things out of Ian Strong. Kelly McManus has been impressing somehow. I really don't know where that came out of. We did not expect that, right? We thought that could maybe hold Ian Strong down, but thus far that's not the case. So I think more competitive or just definitely stronger teams are coming up on that schedule. So we should see a little downtick in the dominance, but Ian Strong should continue to have a really strong share within that offense. So yeah, I think he is a high-end college prospect. I won't call him a stud star category kind of guy, but he is becoming a high-end guy.
I'm going to put him in stud category. I'm going to put him in tier 1 because he's going to come out this year because this is kind of a down year, I think, for wide receivers. You've got Jordan Tyson, and I really like what Mekhi Lemon has been doing. But aside from that, I think Strong's better than Denzel Boston. I think Strong's better than a few of these other guys that you might see mocked near the top of the draft. I think he's definitely a lock for a day 2 pick if he comes out, which I think he's going to. If this trend continues, like the same market share, the same yards per route run, if he keeps that above 3, he had the 2 touchdown game against Miami, Ohio, and like what Aaron was saying, Kelly McManus has been kind of actually good this year. So if that can continue as well, I think it just having DT Sheffield and KJ Duff there is also beneficial to him because it does open him up for, it's not like you can just blanket coverage Ian Strong because you've got these other 2 guys that have also been pretty darn good as well. And then also you have Antoine Raymond and CJ Campbell. Like, all of a sudden, Greg Schiano's got this Rutgers offense looking, like it did when he coached there 15 years ago with Ray Rice and company. So I'm putting him up there just because I think in relation to the 2026 class, he's as much of a first-round talent as anyone else is in this class. Besides Jordan Tyson. I feel like Jordan Tyson is a lock for like a top 10 pick. But if you're going to talk about Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, I don't think there's anything that those guys have done that you can't say that Ian Strong has also done. So I'm putting him in the top 5 of this class right now as it stands right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and call him tier 1.
Oof, tier 1. I don't hate it. I have a little bit of doubt just because, like Aaron said, if he was the only one that was doing anything on that offense, then maybe we sit there and go, okay, Ian Strong is just that dude and that kind of thing. But I think was it KJ Duffy and DT Sheffield or there's some other wide receivers that are also putting up decent numbers, and so that does scare me a little bit. But I mean, that doesn't necessarily take away from what Strong has done. I don't know if I'm ready to put him in tier 1, but I'm definitely ready to put him in the high-end college prospects. So I'll give him a tier 2 here. I definitely like what I see, and I just love that big playability. So, I mean, I don't think it would even take that much more for him to jump into tier 1 as well.
Yeah, he can certainly jump up. But last year, he wasn't even their leading receiver in receptions or yards. And he played 12 games, so almost that full season. So, like you said, maybe a little bit of reason to be like, well, he's really good, but is he this true dominant guy who's gobbling up like 40% at a small school? No, not yet, at least. But anyways, yeah, a lot of promising things from him. And I forget who's up because Andy had Ian Strong, right? Is that me?
I said Strong. So
Strong.
I believe Andy is up, but he is not here. Well, now he's back.
No, you skipped Aaron, so you got to go back to Aaron.
Oh, did I skip Aaron?
Yeah.
I do what I do best, skipping people.
All right. I'm due for 2 here, huh? Why don't we do a 2 for 1? We've talked about enough quarterbacks. It's a lot of names that we can throw out there, and I will 3 for 1, 4 for 1. How many quarterbacks do you guys want? because we love giving the listeners lots of options. I hate to overwhelm, right? But there's four guys that come to mind that I'm like, they've been pretty good this season. And I kind of want to know who you guys think is fool's gold and who you guys think is
As long
potentially
as
promising here.
Castellanos is one of them.
Ooh, I was tempted to put Castellanos on there. I could include him. Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
we've seen enough, right? I mean,
Right.
he's hardly thrown the ball, but they've looked really good, right? He's run the offense efficiently. I was thinking more John Mateer, of course. Jaden Maeva, USC quarterback, Josh Hoover down there at TCU, and I mean, I guess I won't even include this last guy. Like, I was going to include like Ty Simpson, but it's not real. Like, we all saw him against like FSU, like just struggling, right? Like against
Yeah.
good defenses. I think it's a mirage. We can say he's probably fool's gold, unless you guys object. But I am curious about Josh Hoover, Maeva, and Mateer.
Well, I'll go first with Maeva. Uh, I don't think it's real, but I also don't think he's bad. So I don't want to call him like fool's gold or anything. Um, Good game against Purdue, even though he didn't throw any touchdowns. He's rushing for a lot of touchdowns, which is nice if you're playing him in CFF. But then like against Michigan State, he's still throwing for a lot of touchdowns as well. It's hard, when your yards per attempt is like so much higher than your ADOT. I feel like there's something going on there with like your numbers are being partially inflated by your talented receivers, or you're playing against lesser competition. Something's going on there. Not to say that doesn't always happen, but I just think the water will eventually find its level with the yards per attempt. The big time throw rate is right where John's line of demarcation is. I think like at 5%. Couldn't win the job against Miller Moss last year, which I think is kind of a bit of a strike against him. Not that anyone was expecting that to happen, but it's Miller Moss. But it's just been it's been kind of the same, whether it's been at UNLV or USC. I think eventually these numbers are going to come back to earth a little bit, and we're going to see what we've always seen with him. I do think he's being more careful with the ball, which is good to see. But I'm not ready to throw him into like tier 2 or anything like that. Certainly not tier 1. But this is kind of the state of the QB landscape right now. Where does anybody really fit in tier 1 at this point in time? Probably not. So I'm going to put him at the higher end of the tier 3. For Hoover, I'm starting to, really, I wouldn't say like become like a fan of, or like, I'm not riding the hype train for this guy, but he's certainly had a good start to the season. The yards per attempt where you want to see it. He's playing decent competition. Well, I shouldn't say. UNC people thought were going to be better than what they are, obviously. SMU, another, I guess, Power 5, Power 4 conference team, and he's dropping 5 touchdowns against them. The big time throw rate is obviously going to be something that John will point out when he talks about him. Same thing with Fernando Mendoza. So I would say he's kind of in that same area as Mendoza, maybe a little bit lower just because of the interceptions and the age. But he's just going to be like a high volume CFF guy who will probably get drafted in the later rounds. So I'm going to drop him in that tier 3 as well. And then with Mateer, he's kind of disappointed me this year. He started out hot and things have kind of slowed down a little bit. But I still think that the potential's there. I would have said tier 1 after week 1. But at this point in time, I'm probably just going to leave him at tier 2. They're winning games at Oklahoma. And that's really all I can say about it. Like the yards per attempt, the big time throw rate, they're all a little bit down than what we saw when he was at Washington State. He still has rushing upside, which you obviously love to see. So I'm kind of leaning on what we saw last year more so than what we're seeing this year. and putting him in that tier 2, but that's about where I'd have him right now.
All right, you guys aren't gonna like this one. I honestly, the more I'm looking at this, I really think that we need to move Dante Moore into tier 3, uh, just because like I kind of hate, and this is not even me putting my stamp or seal of approval or anything like that on Dante Moore. But I really hate that we're talking about these guys and then throwing them all into, like similar tiers and things like that. All right. First of all, get the hell out of here with Josh Hoover. I mean, he's not an NFL quarterback at all. He will never be an NFL quarterback. He is the epitome of college QB, like dink and dunk and maybe make a big throw every once in a while. Yeah, get the hell out of here with that. John Mateer started off hot, like Andy said. Maybe after week 1, you go, oh man, we got something here. But I'm really actually starting to cool on Mateer a little bit, and so I think I think we gotta go. I think we gotta go tier 4 from Mateer. Flashing, but maybe fool's gold. I'm ready. I'm ready. I mean, he has good receivers. I know they've been hurt and things, and we haven't seen Elijah Thomas yet out there and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's more he's winning games, and so people are like attributing that to being great for NFL purposes. But I haven't seen enough of a step forward. In fact, and we have to remember that he is a 4th-year player. So we really need to see him be great this year in order for me to be like, oh yeah, this guy's going to be a 1st-round pick in the NFL draft or something like that. And I just don't see that right now. And then Jade Maeva honestly just feels so fake, but I have to say that his numbers look great. But I know he was not great last year. His numbers are definitely being pushed up by that Missouri State and Georgia Southern start to the year. 83% completion rate, 20 adjusted yards per attempt and things in week 1 and 2. Obviously he plays Purdue in week 3, and then everything comes down to 60.7% completion rate, 10.07 adjusted yards per attempt, but 10.07 is not bad. That's actually a pretty good number and something I'm perfectly happy with. So I have to give him credit. So I'm going to put Maeva in tier 3 right now. I think we got to put him in the tier down. But I still need to see more. But I have to say that he's definitely surprised me, and a lot higher than I would have given him credit for in the offseason. And I think I answered all of those. Oh, except for Tommy Castellanos. That's got to be tier 2, baby. We got him up in tier 2. I know they haven't played a lot, but I mean, we have seen a completely different player here. A completely different player from what we saw before. And actually, the funny thing is, I was just telling you how I was looking at that. I was looking at that article from 2023. In 2023, that article said, "Guess who hit the big time throw rate intended air yards in 2022?" Or I guess maybe it was the 2023 season. Thomas Castellanos now goes by Tommy Castellanos. He was in the article for hitting those thresholds, and here we are. We're seeing him do it all over again. Tier 2, high-end college prospect, Tommy Castellanos, baby.
Wow. Castellanos has not thrown a touchdown against Kent State or Alabama this year. The only touchdowns he threw was against East Texas A&M. He has 3 touchdowns on the season to 1 interception. He's been very, very efficient, right? Hasn't had to throw a lot, but I don't feel comfortable with that. I appreciate you guys.
Honestly, that one's very early, but I love what I'm seeing, albeit an extremely small sample, and even smaller than, because he's only played 3 games or 3 games, I believe. So even smaller than some of these other samples that we've seen. So he could easily fall out. It probably isn't fair to put him in tier 2, but is it fun though.
Yeah, and thank you guys for answering a bunch of different quarterbacks all at once, right? A little overwhelming, I think, based on consensus here. It sounds as though Hoover is going to be probably our low guy.
Hoover's tier 6.
But we're moving Dante Moore up to tier 3. Correct. Hoover is down there.
Which is where I have Dante Moore before you guys jumped me and threw him in tier 4.
I
No.
think
I like
we
it.
were
I
trying
like
to
it.
be conservative, but then you started adding more names, and I think it made sense. I think we corrected ourselves here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Hoover probably tier four, and then Maeva. I actually have him between that tier two and tier three. So I think that puts him in that tier three based on what you guys said. But I've always been a Maeva guy, so I'm just loving this and along for that ride. I know the wheels may come off at some point here, so unfortunately, might have to go down with the ship. I'm riding him out in the C2C league. Love it. But I like Maeva, and I'm still there with Mateer. Like I still think he's a high end type of guy, but he's barely holding on to that tier for me, like that tier two kind of guy, because like we've seen precarious start, but he's been solid enough against a couple of good opponents this year with, I mean, just really John said like the receiver core is not that bad. I would argue that it's pretty bad. Like they're not even like Kearney has not been healthy. Their talented freshman Elijah Thomas has not been good. We know what Deion Burks is. Like he's not necessarily like some sort of elite type of prospect. He's a good enough college receiver though. I don't really like any of their tight ends. Their running back room has been okay, but they're relying on like a true freshman, and everybody else is banged up or just bad. It's like that Oklahoma offense. I think he's doing the best that we can expect out of Mateer. So that's at least my take on it. He probably settles in more in that tier two for us, just based on Andy and I still liking him. It sounds. So what? Mateer two, Maeva three, Hoover four, kind of thing.
That works.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, you're knocking Oklahoma's tight end, but your tight end one, Kenyon Sadiq, would kill to have Oklahoma's tight ends numbers. In fact, in fact, Sadiq only has half of the receiving yards of Oklahoma's tight end, who just transferred or just changed positions from a linebacker last year to tight end this year. And here we are. He has 300 receiving yards so far on the season. So, yeah, that is interesting. But I mean, honestly, like I was never a big Isaiah Satenia fan or however you say his name. But you know, he stood out. Deion Burks is obviously a player that we were high-ish on at least at some point. He's dealt with injuries and things like that. Elijah Thomas has barely seen the field, but we're excited about him. I mean, I can't say that. I don't think you can say that it's a bad receiving core. Maybe it's not, Clemson, but it's definitely not a bad receiving core either.
Yeah, that's a fair pull with the tight end. I was not familiar with Kanak at all, so he's definitely gone under the radar. Though I don't know if the Kenyon Sadiq slander is warranted. He is like what a top five like tight end right now for fantasy production. He scores. Was it all of his
He's
games thus far? All three
Yeah,
games? Like
but he's no Kanak though.
right, exactly.
But yeah, so I want John Mateer to be a thing. I truly do. Like this is not me hating on him just because of priors or whatever. I had him pretty damn high in my ranks in the offseason. So if anything, I'm kind of giving myself an L here on based on how high I had him. But I'm perfectly fine with being wrong. And I think the interception rate's a little higher than I'd like to see. The just nothing's really looking amazing. And we said that it's a small school guy, stepping up, and he's done a pretty good job of it. And maybe he'll take that next step in the second half of the season, and then we can say something completely different. But yeah, I just don't know if I would say that he doesn't have at least a decent receiving core and decent wide receiver core around him and everything to throw to at the same time.
That's fair. And I am torn on Hoover being like in that, fool's gold versus like a tier down from the high end. Like I just don't think that he has the upside to get into the high end or the obvious stud star category. So I'm tough. I'm probably in between you and Andy on that one, but we'll leave him down there. Anybody that we didn't list out here, guys?
Andy, I think did we skip you? Did I skip you like 5 times like last time?
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to talk quarterbacks, I feel like we need to just, and this is me, I wouldn't say taking an L, but me just saying like there's nobody else. The QB1 this year is probably Lenora Sellers as it stands right now. Because nobody's really doing anything besides him. Besides Diego Pavia, obviously, but nobody's going to draft him because he's literally 5'7" and probably can't see over most centers in the NFL. So, as it stands right now, like, is there anyone else besides Lenore Sellers that we're even excited about in this quarterback class?
Mensa.
Yeah,
He's he'll be next class, huh?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I feel
Probably,
like he
but
got a
I mean,
big bag
but he's
from,
technically in this class though.
Yeah. I just feel like he got a big bag from Duke. He'll probably play there another year for the hell of it.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that's something that we're gonna have to talk about for years now. Is is this guy coming out? Is he not? Especially these guys that transferred. You're only looking at 1 year, unless if he keeps up what he's been doing, he might come out. But yeah, it would not blow my mind. I'm with you. I mean, that's how Beth has it right now. Lenore Sellers is the QB1 in the draft class, and there's really not too many. Honestly, who's behind him. Who's behind as of right now. Obviously, it could change. Tommy Castellanos.
Yeah, I mean, Lenore Sellers is there, but I don't even think it's because he's having a breakout season. It's just like he's doing what he needs to do to get that slot, right? He's not blowing up like we've seen out of other guys.
The way the QB season started had me way more excited than how it's going right now. But it's rough out in those QB streets again, unfortunately.
I can't believe we haven't mentioned this guy. This was turning into like a QB pod, but we do have to mention before we go away, Chris Brazzell, the wide receiver at Tennessee. Been just kind of an out of nowhere, like bounce back candidate. Like he was banged up to even begin the fall. And the fact that he just popped back up onto their like starting lineup and dominated from, the first snaps that he played this season is impressive because he wasn't even practicing in like the late summer, early fall. And he was very inconsistent last year. I think injured part of it, but, now he's just dominating out there for Tennessee. So that's kind of cool to see. So Chris Brazzell, guy to keep an eye on. I think there's actually something there with his route running, his ball skills, his speed. I mean, I hate to say this, but I mean, I think he's a legit dude. Like I actually think I'm going to consider him between that like high end and that tier down from the high end. So yeah, that's pretty high for a guy who was like previously unranked for me.
Is he a sophomore or a junior?
I believe he's a junior.
No,
okay.
he played 2 seasons at Tulane before coming to Tennessee last year.
So maybe a senior then.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know if he redshirted, but
he might have redshirted.
Yeah, I don't know. I would put him in tier 3 on the upper scale. Because he certainly could do something in the NFL just based on this one season, but it's not typical from wide receivers to have like the late breakout and then be good in the NFL. But it certainly could happen. Like he's having a really good season, over 3 yards per route run. But at the same time, a lot of guys on Tennessee are having a good season. Braylon Staley's having a good season. Mike Matthews, a year 1-0, is having a good season. Joey Aguilar's having a good season. So he's looked the best so far, but I'm not buying in fully yet. So I would drop him down in tier 3.
It's so hard with those Tennessee wide receivers. Like I really think that they need to be just otherworldly for me to even like truly believe in them and everything. If anything, I think we should be talking about Joey Aguilar as the riser than maybe even the wide receivers. But I will say that Brazzell is definitely on my radar now. So if he continues on at this rate and everything, we're gonna have to talk about him later on in the season. That being said, assuming he's a senior and everything, and the fact that it's Tennessee, it's kind of take it with a grain of salt as well. So it's difficult to get too excited about him. I think I would put him in that tier 3 if we were gonna do that.
Fair enough. I'll take that. He does have a 31% receiving yard share in the season.
He
6 touchdowns, 6 receiving touchdowns. It's almost half of the team's receiving touchdowns so far this year. So that's half of Joey Aguilar's receiving touchdowns. So That's pretty
No,
cool.
I mean the A dot's there, the yards per reception's there, the PPR points are there. I mean it's all there. So it's hard, and if it continues on, we'll probably end up having to move him into that tier 2 by the end of the year. Um, Aaron, I was going to ask you if you're ready to change your mind on Ahmad Hardy, but we're kind of already out of time, so I don't know if you want to answer real quick or if you want to save that for another pod. Oh, there's the pup.
Yeah, puppy wants some attention. He heard Ahmad Hardy. He got really excited, as all the listeners should be. He's probably a wait. Did you guys have him? Like we agreed, tier 2, right? This last week or no?
I think
We
you
did.
had him you said tier 3. You were leaning more towards tier 3. We were saying we might move him to tier 1, but we ended up in tier 2.
All right, fair enough. The pup wins. Tier 2, Ahmad Hardy.
Yeah, let's go. I mean, in all joking aside, I mean, are you more of a believer now, or do you still
Oh yeah.
kind of half expect that fall off now?
Yeah, no, I mean, seeing what he did this last week too. I mean, the guy is just running with a vengeance. It's really impressive to see. So, yeah, no, I'm impressed with Matt Hardy. I mean, you guys were definitely right there as far as like he might actually be able to keep up some of the stuff he's done. Maybe not at the same clip that he was running at, but I mean, the guy already has 600 rushing yards this season. It's
Right.
unreal. But the difference was those first 3 games. Okay, I'm taking it for a grain of salt with the opposition, but that was against an SEC defense, South Carolina, this last week. The team not only won, but it's a close enough game. But Matt Hardy, 22 carries for 138 yards and a touchdown. We need to see it out of the receiving game for him, right? I mean, we really don't have any of that. That's still an issue. It's still not really resolved. Like, can he catch the ball? I don't know. We have a couple receptions as a freshman at the G5 level. That's it. But he's definitely just really breaking out this year after a solid enough freshman season at the G5 level. So one of those rare instances where that transfer up actually works out, and he's a tier 2 guy now.
I agree. I mean, honestly, I said it last week. I'm like, I think he could either be in tier 1 or tier 3 by the by next week, and he didn't do anything to fall into tier 3. I can definitely say that. So I'm still, I guess, still good with the tier 2 for now. But I don't know. We might have to talk about tier 1 at some point this year. We'll definitely do some more risers and things in the near future. But speaking of the near future, this is episode 99. That means next episode is episode 100 of the Devy Devotional. Obviously, very exciting for us. Been going strong for about 5 years now. We started off slowly and we've now gone to weekly, so we're definitely pumping them out. But we're gonna try and do something special for you guys and for ourselves as well, and try and get some either special guests or something going on for next week. So hopefully you guys will join us for that. Hopefully you guys will join us in the chat because I think it'll be a fun episode to interact with and all that. So make sure you are subscribe to the Gridiron Ratings channel on YouTube. That way you'll see us when we go live and you'll be able to come interact with us and all that kind of stuff. We're well over time here, so I'm just going to say it was a lot of fun, boys. We will be back in your ears next week with episode 100. But for now, we're going to go ahead and cash out. See you guys.